The Santiago Bernabéu has always been a fortress of white, a place where Barcelona players are usually booed, whistled, and torn apart by one of the most demanding crowds in football. Yet on one unforgettable night in 2005, something happened that nobody could have predicted. As Ronaldinho danced past defenders and buried his second goal, the stadium fell silent for a moment, and then, shockingly, the impossible unfolded. Real Madrid fans, the fiercest rivals in world football, stood up and applauded a Barcelona player. But what made this moment so powerful that even sworn enemies had no choice but to honor him? This is the untold story of the night the Bernabéu bowed to Ronaldinho. To grasp why that night at the Santiago Bernabéu still echoes through football history, you need to understand the true weight of El Clásico. It's not simply Barcelona versus Real Madrid, it's Catalonia versus Castile. It's politics, identity, history, and pride clashing under the brightest lights. These matches divide families, cities, and even nations. And inside the Bernabéu, the rules are simple. Barcelona players are the enemy. They are booed, insulted, and pressured from the first whistle until the last. Respect? Applause? That's not part of the script. In 2005, Real Madrid stood as the home of the Galacticos, a squad built not only to win, but to dominate the world. Zidane, Beckham, Ronaldo Nazario, Figo, Roberto Carlos, the kind of names that filled billboards and sold out stadiums before the game even began. This wasn't just a team, it was a collection of global icons. To their fans, the Bernabéu was a temple, and the expectation was absolute superiority. Barcelona, meanwhile, was in the middle of a transformation. Under Frank Rijkaard, the club was shaping the foundations of a dynasty. Young stars like Xavi and Iniesta were beginning to emerge, but the undisputed leader of that team was Ronaldinho. The Brazilian wasn't just another talented player, he was something the game hadn't seen in years. Every time he touched the ball, he played with a mix of joy and danger, smiling as if football was a dance only he knew the steps to. His dribbles humiliated defenders, his tricks felt like magic, and his goals carried a sense of inevitability. Still, there was one place where few believed even Ronaldinho's brilliance could shine: the Santiago Bernabéu. For Barcelona players, stepping into that stadium meant stepping into the lion's den. It was hostile, it was deafening, and it was unforgiving. The idea of leaving that pitch with respect, let alone applause, seemed impossible. But that night, Ronaldinho was about to break every expectation and every unwritten rule of the rivalry. From the very first minutes, Ronaldinho played as if the Bernabéu was his own backyard. Every touch carried swagger, every dribble pulled defenders out of position, and every flick of the ball made Madrid's backline hesitate. The home fans, usually merciless with visiting players, were uneasy. They booed, they whistled, but deep down, they knew something was different. The breakthrough came like a flash. Ronaldinho received the ball on the left, standing face to face with one of Madrid's young defenders, Sergio Ramos. Ramos, eager to prove himself, pressed tight, but it didn't matter. With a quick drop of the shoulder, didn't exist. Suddenly, he was accelerating, leaving white shirts scrambling in panic. He cut inside, brushing past another defender with that elastic stride, and now only Casillas stood in front of him. The Brazilian didn't hesitate. With calm precision, he slotted the ball low into the net, past one of the best goalkeepers in the world. For a moment, silence. A stunned Bernabéu crowd, used to watching Galacticos dominate, had just seen their heroes torn apart by a smiling magician. The Madrid defenders looked at each other in disbelief, while Ronaldinho jogged away as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Barcelona had struck first, and the man everyone feared had just sent a chilling message. He wasn't there to survive the night, he was there to own it. If the first goal felt like a warning, the second was an execution. Once again, the ball found Ronaldinho on the left side. Once again, Sergio Ramos stepped in with determination, hoping to redeem himself. But Ronaldinho only needed a glance, a feint, and in an instant, Ramos was gone, left stumbling in his wake. Now the Brazilian was running at full stride, head up, smile wide, with defenders closing in from every angle. One after another, he brushed them aside, slipping past one challenge, spinning away from another. It looked less like football and more like art, as though time had slowed and only Ronaldinho knew the rhythm of the dance. By the time he reached the box, the Madrid defense was shattered, and only Iker Casillas remained. The goalkeeper spread wide, ready to make himself a wall, but Ronaldinho struck with perfect timing. The ball flew past Casillas and into the back of the net. For a moment, the Bernabéu froze. A hush fell over 80,000 fans, the kind of silence that feels heavier than any noise. But then something happened that no one could have scripted. Slowly, almost hesitantly, hands began to clap. A few scattered fans stood, then entire sections followed, until the entire stadium, the same one built to worship Madrid's Galacticos, rose to its feet. The Santiago Bernabéu, notorious for its pride and cruelty toward rivals, was giving a standing ovation to a Barcelona player, to Ronaldinho. Even Madrid's own players looked stunned. Some hung their heads, others glanced around as if asking, did this really just happen? The cameras caught the disbelief on the faces of Beckham, Zidane, and Ronaldo Nazario. Meanwhile, Ronaldinho jogged back, smiling as if nothing extraordinary had happened, unaware that behind him, history was being made. It wasn't just a goal, it wasn't just applause, it was a moment when rivalry gave way to reverence, when beauty silenced hatred, and in that instant, Ronaldinho achieved what few players in history ever could. He conquered not only his opponents, but their fans. For anyone who knows the history of the Santiago Bernabéu, the ovation to Ronaldinho wasn't just rare, it was almost unthinkable. Madrid fans are famously demanding, often whistling even their own players if they fall below expectations. To applaud a rival? That's something that happens maybe once in a generation. In fact, before Ronaldinho, only one Barcelona legend had ever been honored in this way: Diego Maradona, back in 1983, when he scored a goal so dazzling that even Madrid supporters couldn't help but rise to their feet. More than 2 decades later, Ronaldinho joined that exclusive list, standing shoulder to shoulder with one of the greatest names in football history. And that's what made the scene so powerful. The Bernabéu isn't known for generosity, it isn't known for mercy. Yet on that November night, the same fans who had come to see their Galacticos dominate instead surrendered to the magic of a smiling Brazilian. For 90 minutes, Ronaldinho wasn't the enemy, he was an artist, and even Madrid's most loyal supporters had no choice but to applaud the masterpiece they had just witnessed. What makes the story even more fascinating is that Ronaldinho himself didn't notice the ovation when it happened. After scoring, he simply jogged back toward midfield, that familiar grin across his face, brushing his long hair aside, completely focused on the game. For him, it was just another goal, another moment of joy. He had no idea that behind him, thousands of Madrid fans were on their feet, applauding a Barcelona player. It was only later, in the locker room and through the television replays, that the magnitude of what had unfolded truly reached him. Teammates told him, reporters asked him, and suddenly the Brazilian realized that something almost unthinkable had occurred. The Bernabéu, the house of his greatest enemy, had risen to honor him. For Ronaldinho, who always described football not as a job, but as a form of happiness, it was the ultimate validation. He often said his mission on the pitch was to make people smile, to entertain. And that night, he didn't just win a match, he won hearts, even those of his rivals. Years later, when he reflected on the moment,
Madrid double, the one you got at the Bernabéu, and all the fans start clapping you. What's that feeling like?
Para mí, en el momento del partido ni imaginaba lo que estaba pasando, ¿no? Después que acabó el partido, mirando los vídeos, mirando la reacción de la afición, que me he dado cuenta, ¿no? de tan importante que ha sido aquel momento, aquel partido. Y bueno, me alegro porque hasta hoy, donde paso, todos se acuerdan de este partido.
Especially in Bernabéu.
Yeah, I've yet to see it happen again.
he admitted it remained one of the proudest memories of his career. He explained that he never wanted to humiliate opponents, that his dribbles and tricks weren't meant to disrespect, but to express the beauty of the game. And maybe that's why Madrid fans surrendered to him. They weren't applauding the colors of Barcelona, they were applauding the rare purity of a footballer who played as if he were still on the streets of Porto Alegre, smiling, fearless, and free. For Ronaldinho, that applause wasn't about rivalry, it was about something far bigger, proof that true artistry in football transcends hatred, borders, and history. The impact of that night went far beyond the final whistle. Barcelona didn't just win 3-0 at the Bernabéu, they made a statement that the balance of power in Spanish football was shifting. That season, Barca would go on to lift La Liga, and Ronaldinho himself would be crowned the Ballon d'Or winner, officially recognized as the best player in the world. For Real Madrid, the loss was painful, not only because of the scoreline, but because of what it symbolized. The Galacticos, once untouchable, looked vulnerable, chasing shadows while a smiling Brazilian stole the spotlight in their own temple. The applause from their fans was both a tribute to Ronaldinho's genius and an admission that their own idols had been outshone. From that moment forward, Ronaldinho's aura only grew. He became the face of a new Barcelona, a team that would soon dominate Europe and inspire a generation. For many, that single night at the Bernabéu was the passing of the torch, the moment when Barca stepped out of Madrid's shadow and began building one of the most dominant dynasties in football history. And at the heart of it all was Ronaldinho, the player who turned even his fiercest enemies into admirers. What happened that night at the Bernabéu didn't fade with the final whistle. Almost 20 years later, fans still speak of it with awe. The image of Madrid supporters applauding a Barcelona star has become one of football's most iconic moments, replayed every time Ronaldinho's name is mentioned among the greats. It placed him in an elite category of players who transcended rivalry, joining the likes of Diego Maradona, the only other Barca legend to ever earn such respect in Madrid. But Ronaldinho's ovation felt different. Maradona's brilliance was admired, but Ronaldinho's was celebrated in real time, as if the entire stadium recognized they were witnessing joy personified. That wasn't about statistics or trophies, it was about emotion. Football is filled with goals and victories, but very few moments capture the universal beauty of the game. The Bernabéu's applause was proof that pure artistry can disarm even the fiercest of enemies. And that's why, decades later, this story is still told, because it wasn't just about Barcelona's victory or Madrid's defeat. It was about the night Ronaldinho reminded the world that football, at its very best, has the power to unite. In football, rivalries are eternal. They divide cities, families, and generations. Real Madrid versus Barcelona is perhaps the fiercest of them all, an arena where respect is rarely given and mercy almost never shown. And yet, on that cold November night in 2005, the rivalry stopped for just a few seconds.